Dr. Emilia Grzędzicka. She is a researcher at the Polish Academy of Sciences Institute of Systematic and Evolution of Animals. She originally specialized in birds. However, in 2017, she became interested in identifying Poland's rare orthopterians by sound. And in 2018, she won a wildlife acoustics research grant. You see, it can be done. And began recording concerts of endangered heath bush crickets. I love that, the idea that we can have a concert of bush crickets. Currently, she uses bioacoustic methods to study these and other Orthoptera as well. So I'm going to hand you over to Emilia.
Hello everyone, my name is Emilia Grzędzicka and I'm a doctor in the Institute of Systematics and Evolution of Animals of the Polish Academy of Sciences. And today I would like to present the project which was successful in wildlife acoustics product grant competition in 2018. And I would like to present some of my advices for people who would like to start the research with Orthoptera insects and the acoustics of those insects, as these kind of projects are not very usual. Usually people who deal with bioacoustics work with bats or with birds. And the title of my presentation is From Communication Between Individuals to Community Ecology in the Environment. First of all, some tips about the project which I conducted on the heathbush cricket. The Latin name of this Orthoptera insect is Gampsocles glabra. And the title of my successful grant was Acoustic Activity and Conservation of the Endangered Heathbush Cricket on Exothermic Habitats in southeastern Poland. And the aim of this project was to determine the presence of the heathbush cricket in the protected exothermic habitats and also to estimate the population with other Ptygonoidea and establish conservation protocols. As I mentioned, acoustic research on Orthoptera insects are not very common ones. The order of insects called Orthoptera includes grasshoppers, locusts, crickets, and some close related insects, for example, bush crickets and katydids, and actually there are known more than 20,000 species of Orthoptera distributed worldwide. And the other characteristics of those insects are incomplete metamorphosis without the pupal stage. There is X-nymph, which resembles the adult insect, and then imago, the adult insect. And the other characteristic of Orthoptera insects is producing sounds, which is called stridulation. This is quite unusual comparing to other animals' process. The stridulation means rubbing the wings of Orthoptera against each other or their legs. Sometimes the wings or legs contain rows of corrugated bumps, and the organ used to perceive the producing sounds is usually situated in the legs, and it is called tympanal organ. And the general rule is the fact that males are producing sound in Orthoptera order, and females hear the sound, perceive the sound. And in a few words, I will show you how to recognize, how to identify Orthoptera species using stridulation process. And some of my advice is how to identify species of Orthoptera. This is one of my favorite species, which was the object in my project in Wildlife Acoustics product grant. This is called heathbush cricket. The characteristic sign is there is white-rimmed saddle, and the stridulating organ is located on the back between the wings, and this organ vibrates to produce sound. On the photographs, you can see the vibrating organ behind the wings. The sound resembles the gargling of water by a person, is very monotonous, but also very intensive and easily to hear. Another quite familiar species is called two-colored bush cricket. And actually, it's not very common in Poland, but it co-occur with heath bush cricket in the location of population of heath bush crickets. The voice is really similar, also less intense. So to identify two-colored bush cricket and heath bush cricket, someone should have some experience in the field, because voices during the stridulation of males are really similar, but heath bush cricket stridulates more intensively and two-colored bush cricket stridulates with low intensity. The another example of common Orthoptera species in Poland, striped winged grasshopper. The sound is produced by rubbing the wing with the leg. The sound is rather quiet because of the way of producing. It's really physical, mechanistic sound, and it sounds like a fruit grating. And some people do not hear the sound of this insect stridulating. And another example from the Poland, to have also just a general view how nice insect we've got in our country. This is the saddle-backed bush cricket. The stridulatory organ is located behind the head. This is the orange one. And it causes vibration. The voice is loud, and it hears like friction. And you can see this Orthoptera insect does not have wings, which are reduced, and it lives in bushes, and the previous presented Orthoptera examples live in a herbal layer. I think that research on Orthoptera sound is not really common, and to prepare a good project and to have some success in the competition concerning acoustics project, we should know some tips concerning sound producing of Orthoptera. First of all, these insects do not sing, and their sounds are really simple and monotonous. So actually, Orthoptera insects are not good objects to study voice diversity, are not enough to recognize individuals by their sounds. Also, Orthoptera insects live just a couple of days, so any long-term monitoring is not possible in this group. Sounds are simple, used just to lure the males. Using stridulation has to lure the female and also compete with other males. So can be a good basis to calculate density of insects, latency, responses to other individuals, and any research project conducted on Orthoptera acoustics should be focused on this kind of aspects. And I think that rather charismatic species should be chosen to research on Orthoptera acoustic. Those appearing in massive populations are not good object because you cannot hear individuals in massive populations. And methods of recording individuals should be suited to the way of particular species stridulation. This is only physical process. So someone who would like to start research on Orthoptera acoustic should know the way of stridulation of particular species to find specialized equipment to record this kind of sound. And after studying some species of Orthoptera in the field, I think that I can propose some features of an excellent species chosen for an acoustic research. First of all, this species should stridulate in herbal layer or in bushes. Just imagine recording Orthoptera in high tree canopies or in the ground. habitat with no possibility to mask the equipment in open area. And the chosen species should be easy to find and should be interesting for longer observation, for example, sometimes stridulating in various positions, poses, to know it well before first recordings. And in this way, it would be possible to save a lot of time and avoid mistakes. The example of species, in my opinion, not really good in research on Orthoptera acoustics is the blue-winged grasshopper. It lives in quarries and other habitats where there are exposed rocks with low herbaceous vegetation, and the voice is reduced. By producing it, the insect exposes itself to danger. In such a habitat, it is difficult to camouflage, to mask recording equipment, and the act of recording itself also reveals the insect position and exposes it, for example, to bird predators or other enemies. So this kind of Orthoptera insect produces sound during stridulation, but I think that it is too common maybe to be taken as an object in research on Orthoptera acoustic, and also this kind of research can endanger the local population of this insect. Another examples of Orthoptera insects from Poland. On the left, two photographs, you can see the upland green bush cricket, the male, which is the sex stridulating, and the female, which is the sex percepting stridulation. And this species from the Tettigonia genus has very interesting sound, and it stridulates very intensively. Usually it sits in lower parts of trees or in bushes, and it is recommended to some research project concerning acoustic of species. While, for example, similar species from the same genus, the Tettigonia viridissima, great green bush cricket, in Poland actually stridulates very high in trees, in high positions, in tree canopies. And actually, from our position of humans, it is challenging to hear stridulating great green bush cricket. So I think that the position where it should be recorded, and also the rarity of stridulation sound, makes that this species is challenging in the planned, eventually, research on Orthoptera acoustic. And also the mentioned saddleback bush cricket, again, tells another nice tip in the research on Orthoptera acoustics. I think that it is nice to know that the relationship between human and insect is also important. Sometimes we observe the insect and are not noticed, where the habitat is constructed in such a way that insects feel protected in the habitat and can be hidden in any moment when we observe the insect. For example, herbal layer with dense herbs. And sometimes we are really quickly noticed by insects and we are observed, which impacts negatively the possibility of sound recording. And in the case of this species, it actually it is observing humans from bushes where it stridulates. And actually, I've got some problems to prepare good methodology to come into the bushes and to record some sounds of saddleback bush cricket males, because they notice people very quickly and stop stridulating and go somewhere. So In this habitat, the methodology should be prepared in other way than in habitat layer. My favorite habitat, where I spent a lot of time recording heat bush crickets, but also other insects, xerothermic grassland. I think that habitats is really important in the research planning, and also the questions can be suited to the chosen habitat of the chosen Orthoptera species appearance. Exothermic habitat is protected habitat in Europe, especially in Central Europe. And protected habitats contain many charismatic species, which are really good objects in any research, and also masking the equipment in this kind of habitat is possible. And once again, male and female of the heatbush cricket living in protected exothermic habitat, which were the objects of my wildlife acoustic product grant. And two photographs with the examples of masked equipment during recording the stridulation. I think that it is recommended to put the recording equipment at the level of insect stridulating. This is the best way of recording good quality sound. And we can see the equipment in the photograph, but this is only the perspective of photography. The insect is hidden behind the herbal layer, and actually there is a patch of herbs between the recording equipment and the insect, so the insect does not see the equipment left recording. But also another fact, we should go away from the place where the recording equipment is left. And another example of masked wildlife acoustic equipment during recording. I mentioned that it is nice to find some charismatic species interesting for very, very long observation during recording. And heatbush cricket matches position during stridulation to the particular habitat, to local condition in the chosen site. So we shouldn't be surprised with some unusual poses of insect during stridulation. The general rule is the fact that they need stable grass to climb on and start to stridulate. And when the chosen grass is quite high, the female is still somewhere in a herb layer near the ground. So actually the stridulating male has to direct the stridulating voice towards the ground. And this is the reason of this kind of pose. What we found in our project, we found that charismatic species of insect like heatbush cricket appears in protected habitats, for example, in steppe habitats with protected grass species Stipa capillata, and they need this kind of habitat, for example, as a food resources, as a shelter, and so on. But also the architecture of this kind of protected patches should be supplemented with some stable positions for stridulations, and actually the protected grass species are not good example to climb on and start a stridulation. We found in our research that usually common species of grasses are used for stridulation, so the protected insect live in protected habitat but uses really common grass species to climb on and stridulate. And the example of commonly used grass species was Brachypodium pinnatum. We also found that the division of habitats between occupied and unoccupied by Gampsocles glabra, by the protected Orthoptera insect hitbush cricket, are strictly divided, and unoccupied sites contained more meadow plant species, have much more meadow cover, and also the grass area was higher and had higher density at about 40 centimeters above the ground, while patches of protected grassland occupied by hitbush cricket had more plant species, so were more diverse, had more plant cover, more dense plant cover at about 10 centimeters above the ground, and also included more xerothermic plant species, and of course also Stipa capillata and Brachypodium pinnatum cover. So there is actually a strict division of habitats in the case of protected Orthoptera species, division of habitats between unoccupied and occupied. Another advices when you would like to start research on Orthoptera insect is to start really early in the season. Actually, Orthoptera insects are stridulating in summer, in July, then in August, in September, they finish in October. But it is useful to start field observations early in the season at the stage of nymph, which is about May, June, because usually the places of reproduction in any Orthoptera local populations are stable, constant, and also the places of reproduction, the places of nymph appearing, determines the positions of female, which is also a really, really important sex, as it hears its percept the stridulating. And I think that habitats of egg-laying impact the density of local populations. So when you find the locations of nymph, you also find the highest potential in habitat with the highest density of later stridulating males. And the example of nymphs of hitbush cricket, which was the object in my wildlife acoustic product grant. As I mentioned, we should not ignore females. So my recommendation is that before your real research project, you should spend at least 1 year in the field just observing your chosen species to know the positions of female, which are secretive, hidden, live in the same habitats like males, because the selected habitat is the feature of species, not sex. So both sexes appear in the same habitat. And we found actually in our wildlife acoustic product ground and other research concerning hitbush cricket that females and males occupy similar protected exothermic habitats. And it should be, the female should be the sex also search for to have the complete view of local population of your chosen species of Orthoptera. And actually, every Orthoptera insect, every Orthoptera species live in particular community, and the order of Orthoptera insect is characterized by the fact that species are connected really strictly with particular habitat and even particular plant communities. And in Poland, in our local population of heatbush cricket, we also started some studies concerning the whole Orthoptera community, and we found a lot of interesting rules. Here, with red color, you can see two species co-occurring, as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. This is Gamsocleis glabra and also Bicolorana bicolor, so the heatbush cricket and two-colored bush cricket respectively. These are really similar species, similarly stridulating, needing similar ecological niches, food resources, and so on. And this is also my another advice. Sometimes really similar Orthoptera species can occur in the same habitat, and we should spend at least 1 year to identify species quite well. And another mentioned species like Stenobotrys lineatus, which is the striped winged grasshopper, using legs and wings to stridulate, and Tettigonia viridissima, the green one, not recommended to acoustic project. Actually, they occupy different habitat, which is shown in the ordination analysis. So there is no Orthoptera species living individually, or Orthoptera species live in regular community, which is also nice to be taken into account in your research. So to conclude, I think that first of all, we should have some field observations and have some experience with species for at least 1 year in the season, and then we can ask some research question. Individual Orthoptera always live in a community with the same another species, with impacts, their sounds, appearance, density, resource competition, space competition. So we should also suit our research question to species, habitat, and the surrounding communities. And we are not neutral for insects. I think that every species can be interesting, fascinating, but when we choose our research object, we should not to endanger them to any threatening situations in the field, and we have to mask our equipment as best as it is possible. So enjoy your Orthoptera research and hope that some of my advices were useful. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you very much for that, Emilia. Lots of people are clapping, so that's a good sign, definite good sign. Just so you know, I think some people were having, it was going blurry and things like that. We will upload these presentations on our website, so we'll try and render them down so they're nice and easy for everyone to watch if you want to relive today. So if anybody's got any questions for Emilia, then please pop them in the Q&A. We have some questions at the moment, and I think Emilia's about to join me. Yeah, there she is. Look at that. And the same. Oh, are we frozen? Are we okay? Are you there, Emilia? Yay! There we go. Things are moving there.
Yes, I'm here.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much for that presentation. I have several questions that are popping in. More are going into the Q&A, so you're going to be busy for the next 10 minutes. People are asking to hear example sounds of your study species. Is there somewhere where they can find those sounds of the actual crickets and grasshoppers calling?
I think that I didn't find any good quality files to show you, and during recording Zoom presentation, probably I had some technical problems to include some examples of sound. And during my recording, maybe I should have present some original sounds using another device during the recording of presentation, but I decided it was probably too complicated. So for those who asked why I didn't show some sounds of Heatbush cricket, I recommend to find them in YouTube. Because I decided it would too complicate the short recording. I was asked to prepare something 20-25 minutes. So I decided, but it is only my opinion, that including sound would be too complicated. So please find the species on YouTube if you are interested. I found also another interesting questions. If you don't mind, I will just read those questions. They were in questions and answer section, and one question is really nice. Can the device differentiate sounds of different species of insects? Someone asked this question. Yes. The device differentiates sounds of different species of insect, but my recommendation is that you have to control the identification process by the device. You can do it during analyzing the sonogram, and you can hear the sound recorded by the device. You can observe the sonogram. And then you will be sure that particular part of sonogram concern particular species. So yes, the device can differentiate sounds of different insects, but you have to control whether it is correct, whether you hear different species. And I don't know if you all read another question. It is also interesting question. How species specific is reception? The responses
I was
of
gonna ask you that one
companion.
next. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a really nice and a really wise question. Do the calls of one species inhibit reception of another species call by the orthopterans themselves? The answer is yes. The reception is really strictly species specific, but it depends how many species from particular genus lives in particular area, because when there is no partner from the same species, they can act the process of hybridization in some species of orthopterans. When the female has the opportunity to reproduce with particular male from the same species, the reception is really species specific, but sometimes the female does not have possibility to reproduce with male of the same species, and the reception can be wider. For example, in some genera, female can respond to sound of stridulation of males from familiar species, but not from the same species. So sometimes this is the signal of the process of hybridization. So yes, reception is species specific, but sometimes when the female does not have possibility to reproduce with male of the same species, she can hybridize.
That's good. That's good.
Are there any?
Oh, sorry, go on.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a question.
Do you find any?
We've got a delay. Poland and the UK, we've got a delay. There's a question that someone asked. I thought it was quite interesting.
Yes, we've got.
What do you mean by masking the equipment? I think someone was asking about
masking the equipment. The digital recorder is totally hidden and not noticed by the insect, which is just recording. So this is masking the equipment. For example, in exothermic habitat, in grassland habitat, you hide your digital recorder somewhere between the grasses near the ground and the stridulating insect, which is climbing on the grass from the ground on the grass, does not notice the equipment. This is really important because when the insect notices the equipment, it impacts the stridulation.
Okay. So somebody on the back of this is asking you a question actually right now, and you may have just answered it, but can you please elaborate on how visibility of equipment endangers the safety of the Orthoptera? Or have birds learned to associate equipment presence with the Orthoptera? Have they they're picking them off because they can see that they're next to a big green box?
Yeah, for example, bird predators flying from somewhere, they are looking for insects in grasslands, and orthopterans are parts of diet, for example, of kestrels in Poland, of European kestrels. And the kestrel sees the equipment, which is outstanding in grassland, which is something quite big. And the kestrel is flying around the grassland, and then kestrel is hearing the stridulating male, and she notices that someone is stridulating. So this is the idea. And I saw actually some similar situations. I saw bird predators that noticed larger equipment somewhere in grassland and then noticed stridulating Orthoptera, and without flying closer to the equipment, the bird predator wouldn't notice the stridulating mate. So personally, I saw several situations like that.
I mean, that's amazing in itself. The fact that it's something that I would never have thought about, that putting a piece of equipment out, which is obviously quite big, to something that's really tiny would affect predation. And obviously it does. And that's yeah, amazing. I've got a lovely question here. Thanks for your presentation. It's always nice when you get that. To identify the species from the recording stridulations, were you able to build a classifier to detect the target species, or did you have to listen to the recordings to detect them manually? So did you build the classifier, or did you?
I think that there is no good classification because local population can stridulate slightly different, and also isolated population create something like subspecies, and the stridulation can be totally different. And this is why recording concerning one species cannot be the basis of something like universal classification. I cannot imagine something like universal application using smartphone when you have got something like bank of stridulating orthopterans and using them to identify species stridulation, because Orthoptera species are really small. They cannot contact sometimes between different populations, and even the stridulations in different countries in the European continent can be different. So I cannot imagine anything like universal application to sound identification or something like that, because the evolution of stridulation is really fast in small animals. So I prefer to identify them manually. And I think that stridulations recorded in Poland not necessarily work in France, in Germany, because of distance to populations, because of distance to locations. So I prefer to identify manually.
Yeah, no, that makes sense as well. I think I've run over. I'm supposed to be keeping this thing to a 2-hour window, but I want to ask you one more question because I'm biased and I'm a bat guy, you see. So are you just dealing with audible sounds or with ultrasonic sound as well? And is the presence of bats inhibiting emission sounds from Orthoptera? So
the presence of bats, I don't know.
I mean, are most of your recordings daytime recordings, or are you recording at night as well?
At night, not necessarily. Only during the day, because Orthoptera stridulation, Orthoptera sound producing is determined by the weather. So in Poland, also in summer, the evening is too cold, and really early morning is also too cold. So actually, a good period is from 8 a.m. To 5 p.m., something like that. So night is not it is not good period to record Orthopterans. It
Well,
is determined by the weather.
they probably don't want to get eaten by bats as well. That's might be. Well, look, Emilia, thank you so much for your presentation. There are more questions in the chat. If you fancy answering them, please do, because I'm sure people will.
Yes, I saw a lot of questions. Thank you for all of those questions. And there were also some comments concerning the quality of the video, but I think that maybe in your country something was happening with Zoom, and you will show the recording after the webinar and the video will be perfect. And I would prefer preparing presentations based only on photographs, so the text was really minimal and you didn't lost anything, because the presentation is based mostly on my own photographs. So enjoy the presentation after the webinar finishing, when you will see the recording.
Relive today, but like, thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
I'm sure people will keep asking you questions as well. And
it was really nice.